It's time for Jack Antonoff to save pop music. Welcome back to the Uncultured Pop Culture Podcast. My name is Brandon. And with me, as always, is
David, the co-host.
And we are joined by a special guest this week. One of my favorite people in the whole world, one of my oldest friends.
I'm Grace. I don't know if there's anything else I'm supposed to say.
Cool. I don't know if you want to say your full name or whatever. I'm also going to ask you if you want to plug anything. Do you want people to follow you online?
Yeah. So my name is Grace Tallmadge. I'm a good friend of Brandon's going back to when we were in college together. Fans of the podcast may have heard of me prior because I am the one who hosted the Lord of the Rings marathon.
Yes.
But you can follow me at Graceless_Tallmadge. That's my Instagram. It is private. You'll have to request it, but I don't know. If you look like a real person and not like a porn bot, I'll probably approve you.
Speaking of porn bots, our original like uncultured pop culture announcement post has been getting so many likes from porn bots recently.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed that.
I've been blocking them like every other day, to be honest. I mean, hey, if it brings more listeners.
Yeah, I know. I'm fine with it.
I was going to say, maybe it's helping you guys in the algorithm.
I'd be cool with that, I think.
Someone will give us a shout out on a porn site or something.
What if these really are like sexy single women dying to meet you and you're blocking all of them?
That'd be sad.
I mean, I have a girlfriend, so I don't care.
Yeah, David's out.
That's in your court.
Yeah, I'm one of these days I might believe 84DA9C is a real person, but right now I do not. But this week we have an extra person to ask. But first, I have to ask David, what did you watch this past week?
I watched something very, very nostalgic to myself, and it's actually on my shirt.
Oh, nice. I see. This is one of the classic shirts.
Yeah, I watched The Sandlot. Yeah, I rewatched it for probably the millionth time, and I didn't forget how good it was because I love that movie. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, and it made me so nostalgic as usual because it is set in the Valley, even though it's the 60s. But yeah, I don't know. That's always been special to my heart. Not much to say, to be honest, but I just love that movie. We will cover it for sure at some point.
Yes.
On the podcast, because I want you to see it. You have to watch it.
You've said this multiple times. Also, when I asked about what the quote was from on your shirt.
Like the 2 times you asked what the quote was from.
For people who can't see, the shirt says, you're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Also, it did make me want s'mores very badly, but that's something else.
I don't understand that.
You'll know when you watch the movie. Anyone that has seen The Sandlot knows that reference too. It's tied to You're Killing Me, Smalls.
Nice. Okay.
But what have you been listening to, if anything?
I listened to 2 albums this week. Well, I listened to more, but 2 albums that are probably going to go on the year-end list, which are the Cosmic Selector Volume 1 by Lorde and Dream Ivory's album, which has so long of a title that I don't remember what it's called.
I wrote it down because I've been listening to that too. It's called When You Come Back, I Have So Much to Tell You.
Yes, that one. Both of these, very good. Highly recommend. We may be talking about them later this year. Hint, hint. But that's about all I have to say. But I also, as I was editing last week's episode, I realized that I have to shout out a song that I liked from this most recent New Music Friday. And that song is Dang by Rainbow Kitten Surprise, which is not a band I've ever talked about on here before, but I really liked that song and it just came out. So,
is it a band that you've been following though?
Yeah, for like 8 years.
Oh, damn.
Great band. They've been around a long time.
Yes, even longer than that. But now we get to ask Grace, what have you watched or listened to this week?
Yeah, I'll start with what I watched. I watched 2 movies, although one of them I did not finish. I had to leave the function before the movie ended. The first movie was Andrei Rublev, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. I watched the first 2 of the 3 hours of that with some pals. It was a friend's birthday. It's his favorite movie. He made us all sit down and watch a Tarkovsky movie. And the first hour, I have to admit, I could not tell you what was going on. But then the second hour, I was actually quite locked in, and I was kind of mad I had to leave. So I'll finish it at some point because I was actually enjoying it. And then I immediately left that function and drove to the theater to see Eddington, directed by Ari Aster.
Ooh. I know, a very divisive film.
Yeah, well, sometimes you see a movie and you leave the theater and you're like, well, that's all you can say. No, what I will say about Eddington is that it is very funny. I watched a Tarkovsky movie directly prior to that because Tarkovsky movies they're typically very long and they're very slow and they feel very long. Like when I watched Solaris, which is one of his famous films, I think that took me 3 sittings to complete that film. So Andrei Rublev was feeling pretty slow. Eddington, 2.5 hours, felt 3 times as long as Andrei Rublev. I was in my seat. The urge to check my phone has never been stronger, quite honestly. It was time for that movie to be over like an hour before it actually ended.
That's crazy, considering how like slow any of Tarkovsky's films can be, because like they are very slow. And I say that as someone that is a fan of his films. Like I love Solaris, but it's crazy hearing that Eddington felt slower than that. Like that,
yeah, that's really saying something. That Eddington felt slower than a Tarkovsky movie is really saying something. But half the people I was with really loved it. The other half gave it 1 star. I gave it no stars. I didn't rate it because I didn't know what to rate it. But if you want to follow me on Letterboxd and see the star ratings I give other movies, I can plug that. I'm at Gracie T. So that's GRACIET on Letterboxd. And my profile picture is a picture of Keira Knightley on the set of Pirates of the Caribbean. And then what I've been listening to, well, first I have to plug my song. It's not actually my song, but I did provide backing vocals on a song by my really good friend from college, Adeline. The song is called Good Then Gone. It's inspired by The Summer I Turned Pretty, which just dropped last week, or the first episode. I've not been watching that show, but I did love the books when I was growing up. So that was really fun to get in the studio with her and, do some oohs and ahs in the background.
Hell yeah.
And I think it's really catchy. I mean, I'm biased, but I don't know. I think it's a bop. I also listened to Dream Ivory's album. Brandon put me on to them, so shout out. And then also Wet Legs' new album, Moisturizer. I was a fan. I think it's really good. I think it's better than their debut, honestly.
Oh, okay, cool. I do have that on my list, so I will be listening at some point.
I want to hear if you agree or disagree when you do listen to it.
Definitely. Now, before we get into some other things, I would like to ask Grace one question because, as you just heard, she answered both music and movie question. So that brings me to my question, which is, do you see yourself more as a music person or as a movie person, or both? Ooh. Which I guess is the cop-out answer.
I mean, yeah, I want to say both. Like, I want to say the cop-out answer. But also, you know what? I'm going to say a secret fourth option, which is neither. Because I often feel like a fake fan of movies, like when I'm with a lot of my like film school friends. And then I often feel like a fake fan of music when I'm talking with like musician friends. So I don't know what that makes me then. Like, I don't know, like emo poetry person.
I was going to say poetry. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I'm a little more, maybe, yeah. I'll be pretentious and I'll say I'm a poetry person.
I would say poetry bridges the gap, go.
That is true. There is a lot of poetry inherent to music and to filmmaking, I think.
And then the last thing before we start into our album is, Grace, I wanted to ask you to explain your rating system, because David and I have both talked about our rating systems at the beginning of the podcast.
Our very different
starting
rating systems.
Yes. So I'm curious to hear what you have, because I know this, I mean, spoiler alert, I know this is one of your favorite albums of all time, which is kind of why you chose it. But what is your rating system like?
Quite honestly, it's vibes. It's a lot of vibes. I remember we were talking about Lorde's new album, Virgin, which I also have been bumping a lot since that came out last month in June. And I went through and I rated all the songs. Brandon and I were discussing it, and I rated all the songs. And then I averaged, and all the songs were that's kind of like a vibes-based rating. But then I averaged my score of the songs. But then I was like, I feel like the album as a whole deserves a little bit higher. So then I like rounded up.
I get that.
For movies, it's definitely vibes-based. I try to take into account the craftsmanship of the film as well as my enjoyment. Maybe I give more weight to craftsmanship. Like maybe something like Andrei Rublev, like I'm never going to watch that again. And I can't say, that's like my favorite movie of all time. But I'll probably still give that, when I finish it, like a very high score of like 4.5 or 5 stars, because the craft inherent to it is really impressive. So that I weigh that more heavily than like enjoyment. But there is definitely like a like je ne sais quoi like vibe that I can't really explain that also factors into the rating system.
Sounds good. I hope our listeners understand. I hope both me and David understand as well.
No, I completely understand. I think that's the best way to look at it. Like a balance of two things, vibes and craft.
That brings us to our album this week, which is Melodrama by Lorde. This album was released June 16th, 2017 by Lava Music, Republic Records, and Universal Music New Zealand. It was engineered by Laura Sisk, mixed by Serban Genia, I hope I said his name correctly, Tom Elmhurst, and Jack Antonoff, and mastered by Tom Coyne and Randy Merrill. And then also, I don't really know how to say Laura's real name. I believe it's Ella Maria Lani Yellick O'Connor. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's Lorde. She is also heavily involved in this album, writing and producing on, she wrote on every song, but I don't know if she produced on every song. I think she did.
I did want to say, I did not realize that Lorde's a Kiwi. I had no idea.
So this album reached number 5 in the UK, and it reached number 1 in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. It had 3 official singles: Green Light on March 2nd, 2017, Perfect Places on June 1st, right before the album, and then the Homemade Dynamite remix was the 3rd official single in September of 2017, after the album had already been out. Before I ask Grace her thoughts on this, I wanted to say one thing that I remember from this era, which is this is when it felt like Jack Antonoff was going to save pop music, and he was everywhere, and he was contributing to every album, and everyone was like, oh my God, he's the next big thing. So with that, I wanted to ask Grace, what did it feel like to be a fan during this time? Because I was not a fan at this point, but I now am. So because of this album.
This was probably peak time to be a Lorde fan. I've been a fan of hers since the beginning, when she first dropped the Love Club EP, Royals. I remember I heard that on like alternative radio, and I remember them saying like she's like the youngest like solo female artist like on like the alternative charts to like hit number 1. And we're the same age pretty much. She's like less than a year older than me. So I've kind of grown up with her in a lot of ways, and kind of every album she's dropped has spoken to me in like a different way, because I'm kind of going through these phases of life with her. And this was just an amazing time to be a Lorde stan. Of all like the pop girlies, Lorde is probably the one that I would consider myself like a stan. Even though I'm not like standing her as hard as I do some other artists, but she's like my main pop girly for sure. I was going back, I dug up some old like Tumblr posts that I was like making at the time this album came out. And I think the one that speaks the most is I just said, wow, I can't believe Lorde saved 2017. And that was how it felt. That's how it felt. There was like, there's a reason to keep living, because Lorde just put out a magnificent album. Maybe we can talk more about this when Greenlight dropped, but I remember when she first teased that. And that was so exciting. She put out like a website, and she teased just a snippet. It was like a little bit of the video, the end of the video. And it's the part of the outro that's like mostly instrumental. And then it just ended with the like, I'm waiting for it, and it cut off hard. And that was like, the anticipation was crazy. I cannot remember ever being more hype about like music about to drop. Even since then, like I don't know, maybe Virgin, but at that point she'd already released Solar Power, which had made me a little bit more, a little more cautious. Lorde, I love you. It's okay. I'll defend Solar Power to an extent. We'll talk about it later.
And before we dive in, David, I want to ask you, have you ever heard Lorde's music before?
I mean, of course I have. I remember when Royals was everywhere. I've heard maybe some of her more well known. I guess you could say her hits. I don't think I've like realized every time that it's Lorde or stuff like that. That being said, I've definitely like noticed her being featured, in other artists' albums, stuff like that. So like I knew of her. I obviously knew Royals. I knew like some of her songs, but I didn't know that much. So this was kind of my first, like, I guess you could say, full introduction to her music.
I want to real quick just give a little background on what like Lorde's life was looking like when she was writing this album. Her debut, Pure Heroine, she was a teenager when she wrote that. She was living at home with her parents in New Zealand. And a lot of that album was about her kind of sitting back and observing her peers and kind of like really reflecting on the idea of like adolescence and what it means to kind of like be in this in-between phase. But she was really like kind of removed from it. Like it's a very like observant album about her peers and their culture. And then Melodrama, she's now, I mean, she's a mega pop star at this point. She moves away from home. She's living on her own for the first time. She's an adult. She's now very much like in the fray. And she's spoken about this at length through like Melodrama. She's in it. She's experiencing these things. This is like very like diaristic in a way. And this album was really inspired by the fact that she had just broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years, photographer James Lowe. They started dating when she was 16 and he was 24. So, that's something. I will say something, and I don't know, if for whatever reason I meet Lorde and we become best friends, you're going to need to take this podcast off the air because I'm like airing like dirty laundry. But
you don't have to say it's true. You can just say, I've heard this,
And honestly, I don't think it's true. I don't subscribe to it, but there are theories floating around, or a theory floating around, that she and Jack Antonoff were having an affair while they were creating this album. Some of the evidence for this is that she literally moved in with him and Lena Dunham. So he was dating Lena Dunham at the time. She literally moved into their apartment. And then Lena Dunham was gone all summer 2016 on that campaign trail with Hillary Clinton. So it was like just Lorde and Jack in the apartment. And I don't know, people pick out like things they've said in interviews, and like that's kind of weird they're talking about each other that way. And then they did a live performance of the Bleachers song Don't Take the Money in 2018, where on stage, I don't know, they're looking really close. They're looking quite close. But if we believe the public timeline, at this point, 2018, Lorde is already dating her next boyfriend, with whom she also just recently broke up. And the age gap there was like even so much worse. But, that's neither here nor there. That's not my business. But personally, I don't subscribe to the Lorde and Jack affair theory. Maybe just because I feel like it's kind of gross and I don't want to believe it. But I don't know. That's kind of like the background of Melodrama going into it. So she's living on her own. She's, out on the town, an adult, partying, going through like her first like major heartbreak. And then she sits down with Jack Antonoff. Most of it was written at a piano, which I think you can tell listening to the songs. And she said she really wasn't worried with this album about staying in any specific genre lane. So she felt like a lot freer to experiment, which I think you can see in the album. And then I think that was all I had to say about the background of the writing of this album. And I'll let Brandon get into Greenlight.
The last thing I'm going to say right before we get into Greenlight is a quick prediction, which neither of you have to react to. David, I think your favorite song on here will be Greenlight or Sober. And Grace, I think your favorite song on here is either Hard Feelings or Supercut. Track number 1, Greenlight, written by Jack Antonoff, Joel Little, and Lorde, and produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, and Frank Dukes, with additional production by Cuck Harrell. I believe that's how you say his name, K-U-K. Shout out to him. He's been around forever. This was the lead single of the album. It's also the first song on the album. And I remember when this dropped, it felt like a moment. And as someone who had heard Royals a million times and was kind of like, oh my God, I can't stand Lorde. I hate this song so much. This is not at all what I was expecting. For some reason, I heard it on the radio before I heard it on New Music Friday. But I remember having a very specific memory and thinking, this is really interesting. This song was also a success. It peaked at number 19 on the Hot 100, number 20 in the UK on the singles chart, number 9 in Canada, number 4 in Australia, and, of course, number 1 in her native New Zealand. In addition to all of that success, it is ranked as one of the best songs of the year 2017 and of the 2010s. So, Grace, what did this feel like when it came out and when you first heard it?
This changed the timeline. I watched the music video when it came out, and I remember the music video opens with her just like looking right into the camera. And, you know, I do my makeup in someone else's car. And I remember being like, there's been a shift in the world. I just feel it right now. It was crazy. I was so hype. I remember dancing around my room to that song so many times. At the time I was in college. I would have been 19 when that song came out. And I remember, it was it was very different from what she had done before. And I wrote down a quote from an interview she did about it where she talked about like why she chose it as the lead single. Because she felt like it was a very strong opening statement for this era. She said, Greenlight just felt like this very strange, confident thing of like, here I am, this is where I am right now. If you want to come with us, you can come with us. So she's kind of saying, you know, hey, this is the sound, this is what I'm doing. And, you know, if you're on board, then like, have we got an album for you? This is on I have a playlist of like all-time best album openers, and this is definitely on it. I don't know what else to say besides it changed the culture. It changed the timeline.
Yeah. When I heard it on the radio, I thought this is what pop music is going to sound like for the next few years. And it kind of did. Like this kind of changed everything. And despite the fact that Jack Antonoff is involved with a bunch of that, like it also like this sound was a big deal up until really like 2020 when COVID shifted everything. And then we were kind of like, let's all be sad and now be country and Christian for some reason. David, what did you think when hearing this song? And had you heard this one before? Because I feel like this is one of her like biggest songs ever.
It's crazy that I'd never heard of it with it being one of her biggest songs, at least not consciously, because like I feel like I didn't know any of the songs on this whole album, including Greenlight. The first thing I didn't want to say was this song starts like from the first millisecond, which I feel like is so interesting for the opening song, because I feel like usually when you have the first song in an album, there's like that little moment of quiet and then the song starts. So I thought it was so interesting that it kind of like begins the album and it right away hits you. And I think that that's perfect for like the opening song for this album. And I wanted to say, and this is going to be something that I'm going to say a lot, but I love the production of this song. It's very, very unique. And I agree like with what you guys said, where it did kind of help set the tone for pop. And I think you can totally see that. But at the same time, it feels so idiosyncratic to itself, you know, to like her specific style. It doesn't, you would never say, oh, this could be another artist. I feel like, you know, this is Lorde pretty much. Like this is her sound.
I think that we're off to a good start then. I have two quick little things and then I'll give my score. I am 99% sure the piano in this song is the Steinway Grand stock plugin in Logic that just comes with Logic. I have heard that for years and I have never noticed that, but I'm really certain that it is. Also, the outro of this song is fully developed. It is very long. And I said, current artists and producers take note. Grace knows I love a long outro in a song. We've talked about this many times. And now I'm sharing it to everyone here. I hate when a song just ends and you don't actually get like an ease out of it when it feels like you're supposed to. And in this song, I think the outro makes it really good. Now, this song, I rated a 4.
I wish the listeners could see the look of like surprise on Grace's face when he said 4.
It's not even, it's just, I don't know, shock and disappointment.
I just want to say, you've heard about all of the amazing things I've said about this, and this is a 4. And I think you know how I feel about this album. So
True.
Wait.
True.
What did you guys give it?
5. Easy 5. Didn't even have to think about that one. Perfect song.
I gave this one a 4.5. It's up there for me. I literally wrote down, we are off to an amazing start.
David, is this your favorite? This was one of the ones I said.
This is not my favorite. It's close, but it's not my favorite.
Oh.
We'll see if your second guess was right.
Shall we move on to that second guess, that second song?
Track number 2 is Sober, written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, and Malay, with vocal production by Cuck Harrell. This was released as a promotional single a week before the album. Take it away, Grace.
Hell yeah. For this one, most of what I wrote down, great production on this one. The production, I love the intro and outro. Something that was interesting about the songwriting on this one is that I feel like with Pure Heroine, her first album, she was like 15, 16 creating that album. And she kind of like speed runs nostalgia for adolescence. Like she's a teenager, but so much of the album is her looking back like with this like nostalgia, this idea that like we've already lost so much time. Like, you know, this is like a time of my life I can never get back. I feel like with this album, she speed runs right to like, so we have green light, we're in the club, we're sad, but like we're dancing. And then we immediately whip back to Sober, where we're reflecting on like the darker undercurrents of nightlife. And this is the second song in the entire album. And like, we're already like in this reflection. And something else I do want to say about this kind of reflects the album as a whole. And I'll talk about it later, like talking about the album in general. But Lorde has said that a lot of this album is about the dichotomy of her life at the time, because she was spending most of the time writing this album. She was switching between New York, where she was a pop star, working on music with Jack Antonoff, and then she would fly back to New Zealand for like a week or 2 weeks at a time and party with all her hometown friends. So there was this like crazy double life she felt like she was living. Additionally, with the double life she felt like she was living, where she was going through this really intense heartbreak, but then also I'm out on my own for the first time, partying, going crazy, but you know, deep down, I'm actually in a lot of pain. So the fact that like she puts Green Light and then Sober like right next to each other, and then the song that comes after this, Homemade Dynamite, like I think it really reflects that whiplash and that like double life. I wrote down my favorite lyrics for all of these songs. For this one, I love the line, Jack and Jill get fucked up and possessive when it get dark. That's like my favorite part of the song. And I think her vocal delivery on every song is so good on this album. But I love like the way she like really drops her voice to almost a whisper on that line. I think it's so perfect.
I am going to say something that will make you angry, unfortunately. Upon first listen of this album back in 2017 and till now, I've not really connected with this song. And I don't know why, because I think it's really nice, but it just, for some reason, doesn't, like, it never connected. But I also wanted to say that this song feels very New Zealand to me. And I don't know why, it just feels like it is. So
that doesn't make me angry. That's fine that a song doesn't like, connect with you personally. Because there are some songs on this album we'll talk about later where I'm kind of like, low-key, this doesn't really hit for me.
Interesting. Maybe that'll be my favorite, probably. This one is a 3.5, though.
Now I also know why you said that this might be my favorite, because you didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. That tracks.
Was I right?
I listened to parts of this album more than once. This was one of those songs. And the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is good. I like this. And I gave it a 4. The second time I listened to it, I was like, wait, no, this is actually as good as Green Light. And I gave it a 4.5. And then I kept on listening to it. And I've been listening to it for the past week.
Let's go.
Wow, you were right, Brandon.
This is my favorite song on the whole album.
Hell yeah.
This is a 5. I think that this is a perfect song. Like everything from the production to the vocal performance, to the lyrics, across the board. This is a perfect song.
Nice.
100%. You were right.
I'm 1 out of 2 so far.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, your way of guessing my favorite song is kind of foolproof at this point.
I will say this is not my least favorite song on the album. There is one other song that I just don't really care about, unfortunately. But we'll get there. But Grace, what was your score for this song?
I gave this a 4.25 out of 5.
I guess you are legally allowed to do that.
That's our first 4.25.
Yeah, because I don't know. It seemed, I don't love it as much. I don't revisit it enough to really, for me to be like, oh yeah, this is a 4.5 or a 5. But 4 seemed too low. So I split the difference with a 4.25. Sorry if that's cowardly.
Well, I don't know. If you log it and rate your music, I don't know what you're going to do. Probably go up to a 4.5. I usually round up.
Yeah, I'll probably round up.
Track number 3 is Homemade Dynamite. and I'm going to butcher some names here, written by Jacob Jarlstrom, Lorde, Ludwig Soderberg, and Tuvelo. Shout out to her for her feature on S.G. Lewis.
That's right.
That's our connection. And this was produced by Lorde and Frank Dukes with vocal production by Cuck Harrell. This is the only song on the album that is not produced by Jack Antonoff. This was a promotional single when the album dropped. So day of, this was the one that got put in playlists and was kind of treated as a single, but it wasn't officially a single until the remix came out, which we'll talk about shortly. I'm going to say my two quick little notes, which I think this has maybe the best pre-chorus on the album. And then also I will have a little quote here, which is behave abnormally, which she says in the song. And then I just wrote VMA's performance after that. So Grace, if you'd like to talk about the VMA's performance.
Honestly, that is something I don't have like a super clear memory of.
I remember watching that live and I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. She did an interpretive dance to this song because she had the flu.
Yeah, she couldn't sing.
Good on her for performing, but it was very weird and people kind of hated her for it. Weirdly.
She's awesome. I think that's something that has made me really stan her so much is because she's a teenager, she's a big pop star, and she gets on, this is like during the pure heroine era, she gets on stage wearing like dark purple lipstick, and her dancing I can only describe as like, I don't know, like maybe if an alien came to Earth and saw people dancing and tried it out themselves. I don't know if it's very awkward and jerky, but like she was so unapologetic about it. And I was like, this girl is sick. I love this. I love that she's weird. I love that she doesn't care. I mean, maybe she did. Maybe she took it to heart, but she did not act like she cared. That was always something that like really endeared her to me and has continued to endear her to me, that she just like does not seem to give a fuck, that she looks kind of crazy when she's dancing. But yeah, I do remember that she kind of was just like, I'm sick, I can't sing. Let me just get on stage and kind of flail about. And she's iconic for that, honestly. I actually don't have that much to say about this song. This song was always like, oh, this is fun, I'll play this. But this is never like, oh my God, I gotta go listen to Homemade Dynamite. I'll just go into my score. I gave it a 4 out of 5, even though I do think it's a really good pop song. And it definitely spoke to me at the time. So for context, the time this album drops, it's 2017. I'm in my second year of college in the United Kingdom. The drinking age is 18. I have been partying 4 to 5 days a week for the past like 2 years straight. Both like Sober and Homemade Dynamite like kind of spoke to that idea of like, yes, we're being self-destructive and we're partying and we don't care. And then also I very much had that same thought of like, what will we do when we're sober? Like that was something that I was always thinking about and like writing about. At the time I was writing a lot of poetry. That's part of the reason this album really, really spoke to me at the time, because I was doing the same thing as her. Like I was a new adult. I just moved out of home and I was like going crazy. So that's like what I always think about with this song. It's just a fun song. I didn't really have much else to say about that. 4 out of 5.
This one was originally a 3.5. I am thinking literally as you were talking, I was like, no, I think this is probably a 4 because it does feel the same as Green Light to me, like the same score. But I also wanted to say that there was a remix of this song featuring Khalid, Post Malone, and SZA. It only peaked at number 92 in the US. People theorized that it was because there was a bombing, but I think they were thinking about the Manchester bombing, which was earlier in the year, because this came out in September, the remix. But it's weird that it didn't really like do a ton. I mean, it has like 300 million streams on Spotify, but it's not like, I mean, these were like 3 of the biggest artists, but before they really hit their like commercial peak, I guess, because that was all like 2018 for most of them. But David, would you like to talk about either the remix or the original?
Well, okay. First of all, let me say, the remix I thought was not as good as the original song, in my opinion. I didn't rate it or anything, but I could see that maybe being a reason why it wasn't as popular as the original version, because people are kind of like, eh. I'm not saying that like everyone has my opinion, but I'm just saying like maybe some people.
I don't, but
I also do not have that opinion.
you prefer.
That's fine. I do prefer the remix.
Okay.
I think I probably do too.
I will say I prefer the original version. That being said, I'm with you guys. I gave this a 4. I don't think it's as strong as either Sober or Green Light, but I still think it's a good song. I think it just didn't like get me as much as the other 2 songs did. You know, it didn't pull me in. And I do prefer the original version over the remix. Did you guys score the remix?
Same score for me.
I give it the same score as well, but I probably should have given it a higher score because I do think I prefer the remix to the original. I just think SZA sounds so awesome on it. I think Khalid sounds awesome on it. Post Malone, like it's just like it's like a murderer's row of like
Post Malone, no comment on Post Malone.
Okay, actually, I wrote down my favorite lyric of the remix, and he actually does have my favorite lyric. I know we onto something. We got a loaded gun. Go and shoot me that look in your eye. I just think I love that. So clever.
And I also wanted to say that Louis Bell has writing credit on the remix as well. He's often the co-writer with Post Malone. They work together.
Before we move on, while we did have differing opinions on like which version we prefer, we did all give it a 4. This is the first time we're in agreement on this episode.
We did.
Nice consensus.
Yes.
This is the first time in uncultured pop culture history we have 3 people in agreement with the same score.
Yeah.
Big moment.
Just also disregard the fact that this is also the first episode where we have 3 people.
Well, we are making history in the first episode with an additional person. So how about that?
That is very true.
Which is such an honor. I'm so honored to be your first guest. I've been looking forward to this for months, quite literally. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you for agreeing to this and supplying us with a very good album and a movie that I won't say anything about yet, but we'll talk about it. Track number 4 is The Louvre, written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde and Jack Antonoff with additional production by Flume, S1, and Frank Dukes. This has always been one of the most memorable songs on the album, in my opinion. It is very unlike the previous 3 songs, but it still feels very connected to the rest of the album, in my opinion.
I love this song. This is a great song. The lyrics in this are awesome. So good. I love the guitar. You don't get a lot of guitar on this album, or like very like guitar that sounds like guitar on this album. So that's really fun. I think this song just so perfectly encapsulates the feeling of falling in love or having a crush, like the early days of a relationship. I remember listening to this at the time, and I was single, and I was like 5 years out of my previous relationship. And I just remember being like, oh my God, I want to be in love so bad so that I could relate to this song. And we've talked about outros already a little bit, but this song has a great long extended outro. And I'm going to come back to talking about this outro when we go into Supercut. But I love that that long outro, it really just kind of lets us like bask in this like feeling of like romantic bliss. And it's just, I don't know, the feelings that this song conjures are so awesome.
I wrote that it has another long outro. She knows what I like.
The outros on this album go crazy. She really does like do great outros here. Some of the images that she puts in this song, or she and Jack Antonoff, so good. I love the way she stutters the punctuation use.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love the megaphone to my chest, broadcast the boom, 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 and make them all dance to it.
I wrote that one down too.
So good. So good.
That's the lyric I remember the most from this album. Like, having not heard it for a while, I was like, oh yeah, broadcast the boom, boom, boom.
Broadcast that boom, 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 and make them dance to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I also wrote down we're the greatest, they'll hang us in the Louvre. Down the back, but who cares? Still the Louvre. That's the way she delivers that is so fun. And that's also such a great image too, this idea of like, you know, no one actually cares about us. We're just 2 people in love. But like to us, this is like, we are a masterpiece. Yeah, I don't know if I should give my score. I want to hear David's thoughts on this first, actually.
So I do like this song. It did not captivate me, I will say, as the first 3 songs. It didn't feel as strong to me. I still think it's a very good song. Or I think it's a good song. I think it might not be for me maybe as much.
Ooh.
Or maybe I just need to listen to it more. That being said, it's still 3.5, which is still like a good score for me. But I just don't think it's as strong for me personally as the first 3 songs on the album.
I figured you'd say that because I've noticed a trend that you don't love trap drums usually, and there are trap drums on this song.
Maybe that's what it is. I will say I feel like a lot of times in the middle of albums, the middle of albums don't work as well for me. And there was a little bit of that, not to jump ahead.
I have also noticed that.
Yeah, I think that is maybe just something that affects me when I listen to albums. Maybe if I listen to the songs outside of the album, I would like it more or something. But yeah, still, a fun song. I do like this song still.
Yeah, I wrote that I underrated this song, and I kind of forgot how good it is and how ahead of its time it is. And I said, never mind, I have to give this a 5. So this one is a 5.
Whoa.
This is a 5 for me as well.
Is this your favorite song for either of you?
No.
No, not my favorite song on the album, but it's up there. This is probably in like my top 3. Well, it's so tough to choose. I don't know, top 4.
I don't think...
Actually, I don't know. Actually, never mind. I can't rank these songs. Don't even listen to me, but it's still a 5.
I don't know if I consciously chose like a favorite song. I just always said that one of them was my favorite. So I guess we'll find out. Track number 5, Liability, written and produced by Lorde and Jack Antonoff. This one was released as a promotional single the week after Greenlight in March of 2017, and it is certified platinum in the US and 2 times platinum in New Zealand.
This song was crazy for her to drop that immediately following Greenlight, which was such a banger.
8 days after.
Such a banger. And then she comes out and she's like, what if I also drop the most devastating stripped back piano ballad of all time? And then she also on the album puts this right after The Louvre, which is like this like beautiful, blissful love song. And then she brings it all crashing down again with Liability. This came out and I felt like she was reading my diary. Both at the time and in many years since, multiple people have told me that either this song reminds them of me or they feel like this song is how I think of myself, which, was eye-opening. I was like, oh, everyone is like low-key really concerned. This is maybe saying something about my mental health. And it was not unkind. They meant it in very much of a way where it was like, I like, you're wrong. I think this is how you see yourself, but like, we still love you. I will say, I had a moment where I was in a car with 2 good friends and we were just listening to music and Rylan by The National came on. This is a much more upbeat song, good, very life-affirming song. And someone was like, this song always makes me think of you, Grace. And I was like, am I getting better? People are saying Rylan reminds them of me and not Liability. But yeah, this is just an all-timer. Lorde has said that she initially felt it was too corny to just do a piano ballad, but in the end, she was really proud of the songwriting. This is really funny. She said it was birthed while she was in a cab listening to Higher by Rihanna. And that is what spawned this like devastating piano ballad. But yeah, I think she really captured just this feeling that to be fair, I was really feeling at the time. Like I said, this was like she was reading my diary where, I mean, at the time I didn't know it or couldn't admit it yet, but I was very much like an active alcoholic. And I really did feel like I was a liability to my friends and I was too much for people. And, people couldn't handle me. No one wanted to get close to me, which was not true. But that was really how I felt. And so, yeah, this one hit like a truck. It doesn't have a ton of like re-listenability to me because it's so sad. Like I'm not like, let me put on Liability by Lorde. But it's still a 5 for me just because of how strong the songwriting is on this one.
Yeah, this is a piano ballad. I think I've talked somewhat about how I don't like ballads very much. And I also wanted to say that one of my favorite artists of all time is Eden. He's a singer from Ireland. And sometime in 2016, Lorde said that one of his songs was one of her favorites ever. The song is called Sex. It's very good. I recommend listening to it. And then when this song came out, he said, this is one of the greatest songs ever written. And I was like, I should listen to it then. Because at this point, I was still like, this was a week after Greenlight. I was still kind of like, is Lorde good? I don't know. And I listened to it and I was like, yeah, this might be one of the greatest songs ever. I've tried to copy this song, like writing it. I've tried to write my own version of this song as a songwriter. And I don't think there's anything that you can change about it. And I also wrote down the lyric, the only love I haven't screwed up, because I didn't know if you were going to, and I really love that. And this is the song that I would always say is my favorite from the album, and it probably is.
Wow.
And it's a 5.
Whoa, not expecting this to be your favorite off the album.
Me either.
I love that though. That's like not typically the type of song that I would ever peg as something that's your favorite. And I didn't write down that lyric. My favorite lyric I wrote down for this one is, I know that it's exciting running through the night, but every perfect summer is eating me alive until you're gone. Ugh, oof. David,
I have a feeling that you're not going to like this one that much.
So, first let me say,
Oh, God.
that I love the piano. I also want to say this is something that I noticed specifically with this song, but I do feel like it's present in a lot of the songs on this album, and that is the fact that Lorde's voice feels very like in the forefront of the song. Like it feels like she's singing to you specifically. Mm-hmm. It's like you're in a room with her and she's singing to you, and I love that effect. And this is the song where I noticed the strongest, probably. I also really like the chorus. I do think this is one of my, like, the best choruses in the whole album. That being said, I did think the verses didn't work as well for me as the chorus did. This is also 3.5. I think I just didn't connect with it very much.
that's good. That is a good thing.
I guess, yeah. I guess.
You don't want to be the person where they're like, liability reminds me of you.
Yeah, David, you're not mentally ill enough to connect with it, I don't think.
Oh, gosh.
And you should be proud of
So
that.
pretty much I should use this song as a test, right?
Yes.
Revisit it every few months and be like, okay, how am I today? No, but I still like it. Like, as you guys know, like 3.5 is not a bad score for me at all. It's just, in my opinion, not nearly as strong as like Sober or Green Light.
I also realized that this actually isn't my favorite song, and I forgot that I was going to say another song was my favorite because I didn't write it down. Okay, this is my second favorite song.
I'll allow it.
Okay, but my favorite song is coming up. It is also a 5, that other one. So track number 6 is a double song, Hard Feelings / Loveless, written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, Millet, and Frank Dukes. Loveless contains a sample of In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And it also contains an audio recording from Paul Simon that appears on the 2012 documentary film Under African Skies, Paul Simon's Graceland Journey. This is the halfway point of the album, and on vinyl versions of the album, Loveless is its own song and is the start of the B-side. So this song is kind of like supposed to be split up, but it isn't on digital versions.
This one is, Brandon, you were correct and also incorrect earlier when... It depends on if we see this song as one song or two songs.
Right, which is why I wrote that down.
Just Hard Feelings, that is like, I think, my favorite song on this album. This is like heretical, but I usually skip Loveless, but I'm listening to this. I'm like, okay, because I want to be sad. And then Loveless is such like we quickly flip, but that is, again, like a big theme of the album. I understand why she put those songs together, and I think that it's important. And I think Loveless is fun. Like, I think it belongs on the album, and it is so short that it's kind of like, I don't know what, putting it by itself maybe seems kind of strange. So I'll allow it, but definitely Hard Feelings by itself. When I wrote down my favorite lyrics, I just said all of them. That's not true, but because I do have favorites, but it's a long paragraph. This is one of my favorite albums. Eternal Sunshine is possibly my favorite movie of all time. And because I've listened to these songs so many times, and I've watched that movie so many times, I was not expecting to be so emotionally affected. But I broke down weeping multiple times listening to this album, and I broke down weeping at the end of Eternal Sunshine. As I was writing down we sit in your car and our love is a ghost, well, I guess I should go. Yeah, I guess I should go. I literally wrote down, I'm crying right now in the margins. But it's just the lyrics are so good. I wish I believed you when you told me this was my home. The whole like pre-chorus, that second verse, so good. I have a really distinct memory of listening to this song. Summer 2017, I was in Milwaukee. I had driven into the city. I live in a suburb of Milwaukee. I grew up in a suburb of Milwaukee, and I had driven into the city on a lark. to see if my friend, one of my like two friends from high school, was home. She wasn't. She lived downtown. She lived right by the lake. She wasn't home. So I parked by her house and then I walked down to the lake and I was like hanging out at the lakefront. I ended up like getting in the water and like having like I don't know, a very emo moment. But I very distinctly remember putting this song on and like walking down the sidewalk, and I was just kind of like dancing down the sidewalk like very slowly to this, and it was like a really hot, like humid night. And that just like that image will always stick with me listening to this song. This one is tough to rate. Hard Feelings is a 5 out of 5. I think with the addition of Loveless, it goes down to like a 4.85 or something, just because I tend to skip Loveless. So I don't know how to rate that one.
So going into it, I did not realize that it is a 2-part song. So in the middle of this, I literally wrote down the note, oh, it's an interesting ending. Wait, it's another song. Which has happened more than once on several albums. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that both songs are interesting with how different they are. I think it makes for a very interesting pairing. They both actually have the same score for me. And this was kind of the end of, I guess what we'll call the middle album dip.
The slump.
For lack of a better word. I liked both of them again. I do think that I liked Hard Feelings more than Loveless, but they are both a 3.5. I wanted to say, it feels interesting to me how Hard Feelings is obviously a very heavy song, while Loveless is so much lighter. And yet, in some ways, they both felt like they had a similar lightness about them compared to some of the other songs. I don't know where that was really coming from for me, but that definitely felt present, and I think it did kind of tie them together more for me. It certainly wasn't like the lyrics from Hard Feelings that was light or anything like that, but it was just the certain feeling present like while I was listening to it, which I thought was very interesting. I wanted to shout that out.
I also wanted to say a note specifically for David that Hard Feelings reminds me of Blue Neighborhood era Troye Sivan, which we'll listen to that at some point, but that it feels very much like spiritually connected to that. So Hard Feelings is a 5 out of 5 for me. Loveless is a 3.5 out of 5 because I feel like it's kind of strange. It's fun, but it's weird that it's the same track. But ultimately, it doesn't affect it that much. So the score of the track overall is still a 4.5. But I do think that Hard Feelings is one of the best songs on the album, which I've been saying about quite a few songs on here. So kind of goes to show you that this is really good.
Melodrama is just that bitch. Like, it's just that good. What can I say?
Now we move out of the slump for David to track number 7, Sober 2, Melodrama, written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff.
I wonder if there's a reason why this is the song.
That's what I was literally thinking as I was looking at the title. Yeah. Written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, and Frank Dukes, with additional production by S1 and Cuck Harrell. I have two things to say about this. The Terra and the Hara, which that's the time when she got the most Kiwi. And then I also said this song feels very 2017, and I like it. This one is a 3.5 for me. It kind of feels like an interlude after Loveless is also an interlude, in my opinion. So it's kind of weird in the track list, but I do like it. And like ultimately, I'm glad it's here. But David, I want to hear your thoughts first, since this is probably the one where we get back on track.
I don't think it's as strong as Sober, or even Greenlight. Honestly, like those two opening songs, like you can't top those two for me. To the point where I'm kind of thinking of whether I should give Greenlight like a 5. But
you should.
I probably should, yeah. But moving past that, I thought it was a very interesting song, especially with like the quiet opening on the piano. It's a 4. I do really like this song. That being said, I wouldn't like go back to it constantly the way I would with Sober.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's one of those songs where I'm like, I do really like this, but I'm not going to really return to it that much in the future.
And it's interesting. They're very different songs, but thematically, they are extremely similar. It's just a different side.
Yeah.
Brandon, you said this was an interlude. It felt like an interlude, and it actually was originally titled Sober, parentheses, interlude, before she changed it. So it is definitely meant to be an interlude. She said that Sober is the party, and then Sober 2 is the lights have come on, and it's the morning after, and you feel like you're going to throw up from smelling the leftover alcohol. And I think that's true. I love how like dark and dramatic the strings are. It emphasizes the lyrics. This kind of feels like if this is a movie and we're like tracking like some sort of narrative, this is like the crisis moment. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I wish it was kind of doing something more. It really just kind of does one thing and does it well, but I kind of wish there was something different going on, or like something a little more interesting. But I think it is like very strong for what it is.
Track number 8 is Writer in the Dark, written and produced by Lorde and Jack Antonoff. I have a thing I wrote here that is just for Grace. This is low-key a song about Lorde and Jimmy Stack from Casey Hill's perspective. So for a little bit of context there, Lorde and Jimmy Stack, who is the producer on her new album Virgin, have started dating, and Jimmy Stack was dating Casey Hill for 6 years, and Casey Hill is now like publicly crashing out, which is her right to do, I will say.
It's so funny that you say that, because Lorde said she started writing this in the middle of the night. She was sleeping next to like a hookup, and she like woke up and was like, I have an idea for this song, and was like writing it down on her phone, and quote, felt so naughty writing this. So like pretty much like, yeah, like you're not wrong at all.
I'm going to say some terrible things, and I'll let you guys talk. I do love her vocals on this song. I love the line, I'll love you till you call the cops on me. I think that's one of my favorite lines of the whole album. However, I do not like the production on this one, and I think if Jack Antonoff was not involved, it would be a better song. This one's a 3 and is my least favorite.
That's interesting.
This is funny because I have a friend, when we were talking about this album, she told me she was like, oh, this is your favorite song because you're a writer and like you like writing like very confessional things about your relationships in your life. And I was like, low-key, this might be my least favorite on the album, actually.
Whoa.
I know. The production does not do much for me. This is interesting. I really don't love the high register she sings the chorus in. I think it fits with the song. I don't disagree with the choice, but it just feels so strange coming out of her mouth. And I think that was a large part of like why Solar Power didn't work for me, because she's singing in that high register a lot of the time. And it's funny, I did not like the high register because I have seen this song and the way she sings it compared to Tori Amos, who, if I stan anybody, I stan her. And this is very much how she sings a lot of her music. And I love that. But then when Lorde does it, I'm like, I'll skip this one. But I love the lyrics. I'll love you till my breathing stops. I'll love you till you call the cops on me. So good. And then I love I still feel you now and then, slow like pseudoephedrine. Like what? Where did she pull that out?
Yeah.
That's Sudafed, by the way. For people who didn't know, I didn't know this until I was doing research for this album.
I saw that she said she wanted to make like a rap song, and she wanted to put in some like complex words, and like that she would do that,
And it works. I think it works for this song.
It does, yeah.
But so I give this a 3.5 out of 5.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is a 4. I really like the song. Again, it's not sober, it's not greenlit, but I still do really like the song. I like the production on this quite a bit. I like the kind of the builds it has within it, where it will kind of build a little and then it'll go back to being very quiet, and then it'll build a little. For some reason that really worked for me. I felt very bare bones too, which also worked for me. But maybe that's just because I like ballads, and I feel like a lot of ballads are kind of like that, where you have just a person and a piano like this. But yeah, I don't think it's like the best song on the album, but I still do really like the song. I think I feel like it kind of casts a charm over you, or at least it did with me. And kind of pulled me in. So we are having our little split again.
Track number 9 is Supercut, written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, and Joel Little, with additional production by Jean-Benoit Dunkel and Frank Dukes. For some reason, I always thought this song was sober, and I wouldn't listen to it because I didn't like sober that much. Like when I just saw it on the track list, I was like, oh yeah, I don't like that song.
Can you not read?
No, because I was like, oh, I heard sober and I don't care. But this song is actually green light, but better, I think. And Lorde says this song is a sister song to Ribs from Pure Heroin.
Interesting.
I do think that this is one of the best pre-choruses on the album, and actually probably is the best pre-chorus on the album. It also has one of the greatest outros of all time. which I know you, Grace, you will be talking about it, because the outro is also over a minute long, which is insane and so great. There's also a remix with Run the Jewels of this song, which I think is actually very good. And then I have two last things. Taylor Swift wishes that she could write a bridge like this. And honestly, I could see her choosing Jack Antonoff because of the production on this bridge. And then also In Your Car, the Radio Up. Take it away, Grace.
Yeah, this perfect pop song.
Oh, yeah, this is a 5, by the way.
Yeah, this is a 5. Easy. This one, upon this like re-listen of the album, like front to back, has been the one I've been having on repeat the most and listening to the most. And this always has been in the top. So when, Brandon, you were saying you think it's either Hard Feelings or Supercut, that was correct. Because that's like...
Let's go. 2 for 2.
That's 100%. You're so good at that. I don't know. You just know us. I think this song is the one that's most relevant to the film because so much of the movie is we're seeing Joel's memories. We're watching Joel's supercut and the themes of like, I'm reflecting on this relationship and what went wrong. And I'm going back and I'm trying to change it and I'm doing it right this time. I wrote down in all caps, in my head, I do everything right, parentheses, or not parentheses, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, and it keeps going. And then I wrote down also, I'm crying right now. So I was crying while I was listening to that. I see this one as a sister song to the Louvre.
Outro.
Yeah, the outro. So the outros are almost the exact same length.
Wow.
Once the vocals,
oh my God.
Yeah, once the vocals stop in the Louvre, we get 1:17. Once the vocals stop in Supercut, we get 1:20. So there's only a 3-second difference. These songs are twins, but the Louvre is, we're in the beginning of this relationship. We're in this, this blissful start of everything. Supercut is now we're looking back on it. We're reflecting on it. And now with the knowledge that somewhere down the line it went wrong. And I think that the outro of the Louvre, as I said, it kind of serves to let us really like luxuriate in this, this joy and this like really romantic, heady space. And then Supercut, it's allowing us time to reflect on that and like play our own supercuts in our heads and like really take that moment to think of, really just get in that headspace and think about everything.
This outro was it was one of the moments I remember specifically crying to on multiple listens of this album. I was like, yeah, this is probably one of my favorite moments like in pop music. Like it lets you sit with the fact that like the song lays out everything that happens and then you just have to sit with it and you're forced to, and it's brilliant.
In my head, I do everything right. Oh my God. The way she growls to Wild and Fluorescent Come Home to My Heart is like so good. I've talked again at like her vocal delivery on just every song. She does it perfectly. This is such like a masterclass in like vocal performance, I think. But David, we've waxed poetic about this song. I want to hear your thoughts.
There's not much I can add because I do agree with everything you guys said. I did want to say, though, I want to add that not only do I love the vocals on the song, but I absolutely adore the production of the song. I think it's like some of the best production in this whole album, to be honest. Yeah, this is a 4.5 for me. This is up there with Greenlight. It's either that or this are my second favorite song on the whole album. I can't decide which. But yeah, coming back to this, I'm also like, should I just give this a 5? Like, I feel like I need to listen to this quite a lot more, So yeah, this is one of the best songs. I can absolutely see this, being the song that connects so well with Eternal Sunshine.
Track number 10 is Liability Reprise, written and produced by Lorde and Jack Antonoff. This song is both a continuation of Supercut and Liability. Ugh, her mind, I wrote. And that is the only thing I have to say about this, because this is actually my favorite song on the album. And it's really not a debate because this is kind of one of the best songs I've ever heard.
This is your favorite song?
Especially,
damn.
Yes, some of the best production on the album. And it's just so simple. And it's like the outros of the Louvre and Supercut. It just makes you sit with the fact that like this is what the song's about and you're just gonna have to wait and you're gonna have to get through it. This is a song I cried the entire time through. This is one of my favorite songs we've done on the podcast, maybe.
I cried the entire way through this one too. This actually, so I kind of lied. I guess this is the one that hit me the most. upon this listen, because first note I wrote about it is I started sobbing in my car while listening to this, so it has to be a 5. I remember liking it and like feeling emotional about it when it was released. I remember especially when I went back and I visited the college that I had been like attending a few years later. I went back and visited, saw my friends, and I remember listening to that and like wandering around and like with the song on repeat and just really reflecting on my time there and how much like I and my friends had changed. But now it's hitting me a lot differently. I've been going through some like really major, painful like life changes. And I've been for the past like, at this point, like more than half a year, really confronting like, maybe I'm not who I thought I was. But I also want to say what really gets me is, when she's the outro where she's repeating, "You're not what you thought you were," and then we get liability in the background. This is where I was recording a voice note. I was listening to this in the car and I was like, I need to record a voice note to like talk about my thoughts about this. And then the voice note is so embarrassing. I can't show it to anyone ever because I start sobbing in the middle of it. And it's like real, like it sounds crazy because I'm talking, I'm like, and then it really just, and you just hear me go like, I'm on like Santa Monica Boulevard. But for me, what really got me this time was the dual meaning, I think, behind the repetition of "you're not what you thought you were." I see the meaning as twofold. We get Lorde is moving past this phase in her life. She wasn't meant for her ex. That relationship isn't going to come back. It's time to move on from that. And maybe she thought she was this party girl. Maybe that's not quite who she is either. But then also I see it as like she is not necessarily the liability she thought she was. And the idea that she's too much for people maybe is not true. And I think that is what really was hitting me hard because I've really been going through it and crashing out quite a bit this past like half a year. But I've been reminded time and time again by all my friends that, that I am not too much for people. Like they still love me even if I'm like crying all the time and crashing out. I wrote down my roommate Mo, she like just the other day, she was telling me, she said, I was crashing out. I was like, no one's ever going to love me. She said, like, I think there are things about you maybe can't see about yourself. I think there's things that we can see about you that you can't see for yourself. I interpret the last leave, she ends it with like the leave as Lorde is like choosing to leave this period of her life behind and this mindset behind. Soapbox over. 5 out of 5. David,
do you hate this? Because this is kind of the consensus worst song on the album is what I was seeing, which is very surprising to me.
What? Oh my God. Fix your hearts or die. That's a David Lynch quote.
I gotta continue the trend. I gotta say, it didn't really work for me. I didn't hate it. It's still a 3.5. I think ultimately for me, it didn't really feel complete as like its own song, if that makes any sense.
That's the point. No, I mean, it kind of is, but like, yeah.
It fully
I get
felt
it. I
like
know what you're saying.
A reprieve, which I know is what it is, but at the same time, I was like, I want more. I want like this to feel like a complete song, which it didn't. I still like it. It's still a 3.5.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that's a fair take on this song. Like I can 100% see that. I see that argument.
I would assume that's why most people don't like it as much is because it's like, I don't know, unfinished, if that's the right word or whatever. But yeah. Track number 11, last song on the album, Perfect Places. Written by Lorde and Jack Antonoff, produced by Lorde, Jack Antonoff, Andrew Wyatt, Frank Dukes, with additional production by T- and Malay. This one was released as a single on June 1st. It peaked at number 11 in New Zealand, number 95 in the UK, and it didn't even make the main Billboard in the US. It was number 13 on the Bubbling Under chart, which is kind of crazy. Shout out Graceless in the first, because I know that's always something that I look for. I wrote down, I'll blow my brains out to the radio. I think this song feels both Kiwi and Swedish at the same time. And it is the perfect album closer. It feels like the anti-Green Light to me, where Green Light is kind of like welcoming you in. Perfect Places is like, it's over. Go home. This one is a 4 for me.
I also wrote down perfect closer. That's my first note. Lorde started writing this in New York, late summer 2016. It was really hot, hence I hate the headlines and the weather. And there was all this like, terrible things in the news. The election was ramping up. We all know how that went. And she said this song was about realizing that she was partying so much. This is a quote, partying so much because I'm dreading sitting at home by myself, hearing my thoughts hit the walls. So she kind of really was coming to terms with the fact that, like, you know, this is a coping mechanism for me, and maybe it's not the answer. The line, now I can't stand to be alone, was originally, now I don't know which way to go, but she thought that was too generic. All of our heroes fading, that is specifically about David Bowie and Prince dying. Those are two artists that she really looked up to. One more line, watch the wasters blow the speakers. She had kind of a funny anecdote about this. She wrote this in like November 2016. She was at a party watching her drunk friends like fuck with the speakers. And she was like, oh my God, in 10 seconds, they're going to literally blow these speakers. And they didn't. But then she was at a Christmas party in December. She and her friend had been drinking drinks that they called suicides because they were half vodka, half champagne, which is so real. When you are like 18, 19 and you're partying, you are absolutely drinking shit like that. I don't know if I ever did vodka champagne, but at the college I was at the time, a really popular drink was called Pablo's. And it was like multiple shots of vodka in a WKD, which is like a White Claw. It's like a hard soda. It was like electric blue. We would just like pound those and put those in our bodies. And it was like the quickest way to get fucked up. So they were drinking suicides, and then they actually did blow the speakers at this party. And she said, and then we ghosted out of there. So she was like, oh wow, it came true. Yeah, I think this is just such a perfect album closer. It's an embracing of the imperfection and acceptance of that maybe the party and hookup culture isn't all fun and games. It's not maybe for her. Maybe it's, you know, she's coping with something through that. And we get the, you know, what the fuck are perfect places anyway? Kind of that question, leaving that up to the audience to like really, again, there's so much in this album where she'll end a song inviting you to reflect on whatever it was she was just saying. I love the pre-chorus of this one. I think this is my favorite pre-chorus. She said this song they really had a hard time with. They fiddled with it a lot, especially like different tempos. They tried it at like halftime at one point. But the breakthrough was when they deleted the second pre-chorus. So the pre-chorus, you know, are you lost enough? Have another drink, get lost in us. That was going to be at the end of the second verse going into the second chorus. And then they deleted it. And she was like, oh, this like streamlines the song. This was like a breakthrough. And I disagree, Ella. I think you should have kept it in. It's my favorite part of the song. Also, she does that, like the gun cocking after she sings Blow My Brains Out to the radio. So good. That's literally like, I sit there waiting the whole first verse for that. So good. So yeah, this is a 5 out of 5 for me. I'll shut up about it, David.
Completely agree. Perfect ending to the album. It also feels like a hopeful ending in some sense to me, you know, where it might not necessarily be like, oh, you know, all the problems are fixed, but it's kind of, I feel like to me, hopeful in the sense of like, no matter what, we'll continue on and be okay in some way. I also wanted to say I absolutely love the chorus and the choruses in the song. There's some of my favorite choruses. I actually agree with you though, Brandon, that it is a 4 for me. But yeah, perfect ending to the whole album, which is interesting considering that this also has a perfect beginning. I think that speaks to the strength of the album, that it has both a great start and great end.
I have one last note about this. Low-key, the biggest problem with Solar Power is that the piano was replaced with the guitar. And this was the song that made me think of it, because I was like, I have spent so much time listening to the piano on this album, and I feel like I associate it so much with Lorde that like the guitar just kind of caught me off guard. But then it also like isn't that good of an album. But that's an aside. So now it's time to talk about the album as a whole. And Grace, I'm going to let you start since this is your choice.
In 2017, when this came out, I've already talked about this, but I felt like this was literally written about my life, especially all the stuff about partying. As I kind of said, I was, you know, obviously I wasn't a famous pop star, but I was going through a lot of the same things where I was living on my own, partying all the time. And, you know, we've already talked about the liability of it all. And that was 2017. So now 8 years later, 2025, interesting. I quit drinking for good almost exactly a year after Melodrama came out. It is 1 year and 10 days to be exact is my sobriety date. So the partying element is very much like in the past. I can like remember that and remember how prescient that felt at the time. But those days are behind me. But the relationship stuff, at the time, I was not in a relationship when that came out. Now I've been in a long-term relationship and in a long-term adult relationship, and the challenges that come with that, I've experienced now. And so there's a lot of things in this that really hit me in a way I was not necessarily expecting, because in my mind I was remembering so much of how much I related to the partying element of it all, that I was like, oh shit, but now all the rest of this stuff is going to hit really hard too. And I love that this album is so much about I already talked about the dichotomy of Lorde's life, where she was partying, but she was also having her heart broken. And then also partying is fun, but it also can be self-destructive. And then also she was a famous musician in New York, but then she was a normal girl in New Zealand. And then we get all these mirror image songs. So I already talked about the Louvre and Supercut. And then there's also the obvious ones where it's Sober and Sober 2, Liability and Liability Reprise, Hard Feelings and Loveless, even though they're one song, they're put together purposely. And then I see Green Light and Perfect Places as well as mirror songs, partly because they're the bookends to the album. But also because I really like the idea of Green Light as so much as she's I can't let go. I'm waiting for this, sign to move on. And Perfect Places very much feels like she's she is, I'm ready to move on. I'm not waiting for some big answer anymore. What the fuck am I looking for anyway? And kind of accepting that. And I think it's just a really great, and last thing I'll say is I think this album is just such a perfect encapsulation of the melodrama that is inherent to young adulthood, and how when you're going through that, everything feels like it is just the end of the world and your life is the biggest thing ever. And especially when you're drinking or using substances, because that oftentimes just makes everything seem bigger and deeper and brighter. It really brings out a lot of the insanity and the dramatics of everything. So this album just really perfectly encapsulates all of that. So this is a 5 out of 5, masterpiece, pop masterpiece. Lorde I think she has yet to top this. I don't know if she ever will. Jack Antonoff has yet to top this. I don't know if he ever will.
He won't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he may well not. He made Norman fucking Rockwell a few years after this, and that was a pretty high height as well. But it didn't reach the heights of this one. So I'll shut up. That's all I've got to say about this one.
What'd you rate it?
Oh, 5 out of 5.
Going through all the scores, because that's what I typically do, I'll go and look at the average. This album would technically be a 4, but that is way too low for this album. I was right away okay, I'm not giving it a 4. I have to bump that up to a 4.5 and maybe even a 5. Even though I did give quite a few songs 3.5, I think that this is a really beautiful album. I am a Lorde fan now.
Hell yeah.
I think that it's a very beautiful album. It's most of the time when people try to make any art that deals with the themes that are dealt with in this album, it comes off as very cliche or very surface level. That is not at all present in this album. I think that there are so many levels on this that you can kind of keep coming back to it and keep finding things in this album. And that's really why I want to keep listening to it, keep going through it. And that's why I think that a lot of songs will kind of go up in my mind as I listen to them more. This is 4.55. I haven't fully decided yet. I feel like I need to listen to this more. But yeah, I'm a Lorde fan.
The one sad thing about you being a Lorde fan now is that Virgin just came out, so you'll have to wait 4 years until the next album comes out. So
yeah,
be prepared.
Exactly. And I do know that, the album after this isn't maybe as good as I've heard a lot of people say, including my girlfriend, who was maybe skip that one. That's what she told me.
Yeah.
I listened to that the day it dropped. I was so hyped. I wasn't a huge fan of the singles, but I was still Lorde, I love you. You're my best friend. You can do whatever you want. And I listened to it in full in the car. My boyfriend had picked me up from Chicago, was driving me back to Milwaukee. That's a 2-hour drive. So we had time to listen to it in full. And I remember the album ending, and he was just those were all different songs. And I was I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, because that was 4 years after Melodrama.
Yeah, but I will say, the thing I'll say about solar power is I'm not necessarily a solar power defender, but I am a solar power understander. I visited New Zealand last year, and I will say after that, I was you know what? if I was a teenage pop star and I lived in the big city and been really famous and had paparazzi chasing me, and then the pandemic happened and I moved back to New Zealand, which is maybe the most beautiful place on the whole planet, and just kind of like was able to just like live my life freely, I would probably make an album like Solar Power too. So I can't even fault her for that. And then she came back with Virgin, which I really liked. I know it's kind of divisive, but I'm a big Virgin fan. So
I like it as well, for the record. I think I've talked about that as well on here.
Yeah, she recovered.
But for me, this was the album when I started to take Lorde seriously, because for some reason I heard Royals and I heard Team and I was like, that's it. That's all she does. And she does so much more than that. I'm happy to announce this album. I even kind of underrated how good it is. I was thinking going into it, this is probably a 4. And I had forgotten kind of how much a lot of these songs like actually hit me. And I feel like it actually works better for me now than when this came out, because I've lived more of life and can now, I guess, understand her perspective more. So this album is a 4.5 for me. Take it away, David.
First of all, as usual, I am going to start with the IMDb logline. And as I do with every episode, I do want to hear what you guys think. So here goes. When the relationship turns sour, a couple undergoes a medical procedure to have each other erased from their memories forever.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what happens in the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a good technical sum up of the film, but I feel like that's like 20% of what the film is actually about. But I get that it's kind of hard to like sum up Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
The other thing I want to take issue with is couple.
Yeah.
Because they are a couple, but the entire time it feels like it's two individual people whose lives are like intertwined, in my opinion.
Well, I feel like by that point they are very near not being a couple, which is why I kind of take fault with it calling them a couple. I did want to mention what the genre of this film is, according to Wikipedia, because I thought it was interesting. The genre of this film is a serialist science fiction romantic drama, which is like 5 different genres in one. It makes perfect sense because that is 100% what this film is.
I saw that and I was like, sure, I guess. Like, why not? I don't know what I'd call it. I'd say it's a Charlie Kaufman film.
Yes,
I think that's the best way to
a Charlie Kaufman joint.
Yeah.
A Charlie Kaufman mindfuck. Anyways, the film is directed by Michel Gondry, produced by Steve Golan and Anthony Bregman, written by, as we have mentioned, Charlie Kaufman, with story by Charlie Kaufman, Michel Gondry, and Pierre Bismuth. Cinematography by Ellen Curris, edited by, I am so sorry, Valdis Oscars daughter. I apologize. Music by John Brion, and starring Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, and Tom Wilkinson. I forgot that like 90% of those people were in this film, to be honest.
I didn't know Elijah Wood was in this at all.
The idea for the film first came up during a conversation between Michel Gondry and Pierre Bismuth, who were friends. They had been friends for a long time. And Pierre Bismuth had actually thought of the idea of erasing relationships. After a conversation with a woman who was complaining about her boyfriend, he asked her if she would erase him, and she said yes. He presented the idea to Gondry as an experiment he actually wanted to try, where he wanted to send letters to people telling them that someone they knew had erased that card's recipient, which I think, you just see that in the film. I think that's a really interesting experiment for someone to try. I would fuck with people, but I would be interesting to see where that would lead. He never actually did it, but they did decide to develop it into Eternal Sunshine. And they brought it to Charlie Kaufman. He agreed to develop it into a pitch with them, even though they thought that no one would be interested. It actually sparked a bidding war because everyone was interested in it. And eventually Stephen Golan of Propaganda Films and Anonymous Content purchased the film for a low 7-figure deal. Kind of crazy considering that it's a Charlie Kaufman film. And I feel like 90% of executives would be like, what the hell is this?
He was hot at the time, though.
That's true. He had already, like, people knew him already for being John Malkovich. So people kind of, I think, understood his style a little more by this point. That being said, in classic Kaufman fashion, he did not start writing the script right away and push it back because he was dealing with the whole crisis of writing adaptation, which is something we'll definitely have to get into in the future. He didn't want to make it a thriller. He wanted to focus on the relationship aspect of the film. He had two big problems, though. He struggled with the script, as he seems to struggle with most of his scripts, because they are like so heady. But his two big problems were how would he have Joel interact with the memories, and the fact that characters could refer back to the memories that had already been erased. And the ways that he came up to fix these issues was, one, Joel is lucid in his dream, so he's able to comment on what's happening. And two, the memories degrade, and it isn't until the person wakes up that they fully disappear.
The first draft leans way more into like the futuristic sci-fi-ness of it, partly because it opens 50 years in the future, so it's like extra futuristic. The way he does the memories, it's definitely different. We can see the beginnings of like how the film will end up, but it's very different than what ends up in the actual film, because he continuously describes the memories as quote unquote drying out. Like the setting is described as like losing color, fading, the characters becoming robotic. And for Joel, we do get dialogue from him, but we also get a ton of voiceover. Like constantly there is voiceover overlapping with his dialogue of like things in his head. Sometimes the dialogue and the voiceover that's happening matches. Sometimes they're contradictory, which is interesting. So I felt like the color stuff was really interesting because reading the script, he just keeps referring to the memories as like they're fading, washed out, lifeless. But then Gondry preserves the memories in such like vibrant color and has them fall apart instead of like them just like fading. He's like, what if they like literally like fell apart and deconstructed and like degraded in like these very like cinematic ways. So I thought that was really interesting to see the change from the original script to the shooting scripts. And then even in the shooting scripts, then I did like a comparison with the OG script and the shooting script. The shooting script still gets descriptions of the scenes fading and becoming lifeless. So that's very much like a Gondry touch. That's not Kaufman. That's like Michel Gondry was able to like visualize that and was like, no, this is actually like the images I want to take. And I think it's way more cinematic, way more engaging. I think it's 100% the right choice.
Kaufman did originally come up with a title that was 18 words long that he wanted to be the title of the film. They obviously changed it.
What is it?
I couldn't find what it actually was, but pretty much the reason he came up with an 18-word title was because he wanted it to be too long for the marquee, which
it's so Kaufman.
I thought was fun. It sounds very Kaufman. Yeah, and of course the final title is from the poem Eloisa to Abelard by Alexander Pope, which is in the final film.
And it's not short. Not a short title. Like he still kind of got his wish.
That's why most people just say Eternal Sunshine. But now we got to talk about casting. Probably one of the most famous examples of casting against type. Also, I will say, not the first, but one of the first times I feel like a comedian successfully transitioned to dramatic film. You kind of saw that with like Bill Murray a little here and there, with 2003's Lost in Translation. But I feel like this was the first big example with Jim Carrey. He wasn't the first choice, though. The first choice was Nicolas Cage, which would have made a very different movie.
I also read that Denzel was considered as well, Denzel Washington.
I could totally see that. I feel like he would fit a little bit more than Nick Cage, although Nick Cage had just made Leaving Las Vegas, which I've heard deals with a lot of the same kind of themes. So, that's probably why he was considered. Jim Carrey was actually selected because, according to Gondry, because of his everyday appearance and comedic abilities. As Gondry said, quote, "It's hard to be funny. It's far easier to take someone really funny and bring them down than to do the opposite," which I think was interesting. And I did want to bring this up. During a conversation between Carrey and Gondry, it was a year before filming. It was right around the time when Carrey had just gone through a breakup with an undisclosed person.
Renee Zellweger.
I'm happy that I know who it was.
It was Renee Zellweger.
When Gondry noticed Carrey's emotional state, he specifically asked him to stay in that emotional state for an entire year up to filming to get so it could translate into Joel, the character. And Carrey has commented, quote, "That's how fucked up this business is," end quote.
Yeah, the direct quote from Gondry that I saw when I was doing research was, "Please don't get well," which is so funny. He was like, "You know what? You're so broken and depressed. Perfect. Stay that way. Do not get better." I mentioned Renee Zellweger being his ex there because this is another example of Michel Gondry kind of fucking with Jim Carrey. And Michel Gondry denies this. But in the final film, we hear about Joel's ex, Naomi. In the original script, we see her in multiple scenes. In the shooting script, she shows up like once. And Ellen Pompeo was cast as Naomi. And Jim Carrey was like, Michel Gondry did that because she looks just like Renee Zellweger. And he was like literally trying to like torture me and like mentally fuck me up. And Michel Gondry's like, that's not true. But like, I believe it. Like she got cut from the final film and ended up not even being a thing. So he kind of got tortured for nothing, which is so funny. But it's a great Jim Carrey performance. So, you know, worth it?
I mean, maybe.
We'll get there. We'll discuss it. I want to say, before we talk about Kate Winslet, Bjork was considered for the role. She wasn't cast, though. And Kate Winslet was cast because she was one of the few people brave enough to criticize elements of the script, which does sound like Kate Winslet. And
it's something Clementine would do, for sure.
100%. And the interesting thing about this film is that both of its actors were cast against type. Jim Carrey, you know, he's the over-the-top comedic actor known for, you know, The Mask and Liar Liar and all those films, is playing the introverted, quieter character, while Winslet, who is mostly, at this point, known for, you know, her dramatic period work, you know, stuff like Titanic, was playing the more outgoing, spontaneous extrovert, which I thought was interesting how they kind of switched. Now, the film had a budget of $20 million, which actually kind of shocked me with how big of a budget they gave to the film, although I feel like you can kind of see it with all the like dream and wipe stuff on screen. It was filmed in New York City, and it was an extremely difficult shoot, as days could reach 17 hours, which is crazy even for a film shoot. You know, just as you kind of struggle to figure out what was going on with like the dream sequences, the actors also had a lot of trouble. As Carrey has said, quote, "It was a challenge to know where you were in the script. Several times when we were going through the dream memory, I asked Michel, is this lucid or the way it was?" End quote. So it was definitely difficult for them to, I would say, like find the trajectory of where their characters are in that moment in real life versus how they're feeling, or at least how he's feeling in his head at the moment. So it was definitely hard to stay on point during filming. The cinematographer, Ellen Chris, also had a very difficult time because of Gondry's desire to blend authentic locations with, you know, these sort of flashes of whimsy, which kind of goes to what you said about how he envisioned the dream sequences. He didn't even want to use, you know, artificial light, which is what 99.9% of productions do. He wanted to use available light. Curtis got around this very cleverly, where she just started lighting the rooms instead of the actors, and that way the lighting could stay the same for, you know, the whole shooting of that particular scene. The other thing that made filming very difficult, and this is one of the big reasons why I think, you know, the shooting script and the original script are so different from the final film, is that there was a lot of improvisation. Gondry gave a lot of freedom to his actors, well, almost all the actors, we'll get to that in a second, to improvise, to the point that a lot of the scenes in this film are fully improvised. That includes, for instance, the scene where Dunst and Ruffalo are dancing half naked on Joel's bed. That was, you know, a spur of the moment scene. And Winslet has said that this freedom really enhanced her performance. That being said, this created a problem for Curtis because they had no idea what the actors were going to do in these improvised moments. How are you supposed to film something if you don't know, you know, where the marks are, if you don't know where the actors are going to go? They solved this problem by pretty much having two handheld cameras shooting all day long so they could follow the actors around. Gondry even had a headset so he could tell them where to go, what shots to take based off of where the actors were going. It sounds like an incredibly, difficult thing to do, but I do think that they pulled it off. I think the sort of spontaneity of filming translated into the film itself, at least for me. The thing is, the one person he did not let improvise on set was Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey had a hell of a time on this film because Gondry wanted to kind of fuck with him in order to stop him from thinking about, oh, I have to play this character Joel, and instead just kind of be the character of Joel. He would do this by, not letting him improvise, by disorienting Carrey, by giving misleading orders or calling cut at the wrong time, pretty much messing with him and trying to get him out of his head. I personally also think that this was kind of an attempt to stop Carrey from maybe veering off into giving a more comedic performance. And Gondry has actually said that, quote, I had to talk to Kate Winslet in a different room to tell her, go as big as you want, this is a comedy. And to Jim, I'd say, this is a drama, not a comedy, end quote. So he was really trying to keep, Jim Carrey on this idea that, no, this is a full drama in order to get, the performance you see in the film, which is a mostly dramatic performance with some tinges of comedy. I think that if he had not done that, it would have been a much more comedic performance personally, because that's what Carrey was just used to. Filming the scene on the frozen lake, I did want to briefly mention that made Winslet very nervous because even though they were on 14-inch thick ice, which everyone told them cannot crack under you, even though they were on that ice, they still heard some cracks deep down. They were also stuffed with hot water bottles and stuff like that to stay warm, and they had to stop themselves from shivering to say their lines. In spite of, the difficulties of shooting and, maybe the fear of some of the shooting days on the ice, Carrey and Winslet actually became very close. One of the main ways that they did this was by recounting their own real-life relationships and heartbreaks during rehearsals. And Carrey actually stood up for Winslet when she fainted during the bath in the sink scene. And he refused to shoot until it was made sure that she was all right. I also did want to quickly call out her hair. They did not actually dye her hair, purely because they sometimes would need her to have different colored hair during this, on the same day. So because of that, they did have to use wigs. And the last thing that I did want to mention was this character of Naomi, played by Ellen Pompeo. They actually did film scenes with her that eventually got cut out of the film to Kaufman's chagrin. He told them that these scenes should be in the film. I think it would be interesting to see the film with those in. I wonder how different it would be. And maybe you can speak to that, based off how different the script is. Do you think it would have added something?
What's interesting is that most of the stuff with Naomi in the original script, most of that comes in the third act. It comes after Joel has already had the memory of Clementine erased. He wakes up and he's the most recent relationship he remembers is Naomi. So he contacts her and they kind of rekindle their romance. And so most of the scenes with her come in the third act. And I'm yeah, this is such an issue. I think it really damages the momentum of the movie. I think the way that the third act in this one is so nice and tight and emotional. I think it also it distracts from the central relationship of Joel and Clementine. So I disagree with Charlie Kaufman on that. Yeah, I don't think it adds anything. And if anything else, it slows it down. We've just gone through an hour and a half of this really compelling relationship. And now it's and now you got to have multiple scenes with the ex-girlfriend, including a sex scene. There's multiple sex scenes in the original, really, kind of a lot. I was kind of shocked. There's 5.
Of Joel and Clementine?
Joel and Clementine, Joel and Naomi, Mary and Stan, and then kind of Mary and Howard.
Oh.
They start having sex and then are interrupted. So in the movie, we see they're just kind of starting to smooch, and then the wife interrupts. In the original script, they're fully taking off their clothes already. And that was interesting. The Mary and Howard stuff, I'll just brief since I already brought that up. In the original script, it's way more obvious. it's telegraphed way more clearly from the get-go. That's one of the first descriptions of Mary, is that she's obviously in love with Howard. And Stan also can very clearly see it, and you can tell that he knows and is like uncomfortable with it. So they really toned that down in the final version.
I was just gonna say I prefer that it's toned down. I feel like the fact that it kind of comes out of nowhere, which kind of leads to her discovery that she had erased it, makes you feel the impact of erasing someone a lot stronger than if it had been hinted at before. So I do like that they toned it down a lot.
100% agree.
Yeah, I agree. What I'll say overall is that the original script is way darker, not just in like the ending, but just like in a lot of elements of it. It's like there's some like really dark kind of like fucked up stuff that the script deals with. And one of that is that we learn that in the original script, we have it written that Howard made Mary get an abortion. She got pregnant with his child and he made her get an abortion. And that's one of the big things that spurs her to like release the tapes, like to kind of like to send all the things out. Cause she's saying, I want to remember my baby. I was pregnant and I don't remember that. And it kind of like drives home like how fucked up that would be. And very clearly they were just like, that's too much. We don't need that. It's fucked up enough that she had this whole affair with this older man and like destroyed this marriage already once and is now doing it again because she doesn't remember it.
Before we get to the release of the film, I did quickly want to say that I mentioned the score was composed by John Bryan. I wanted to shout out some of our other artists featured, the Polyphonic Spree, The Willows, and Don Nelson, among others. And of course, singer/songwriter Beck provided the cover of the Corgi song Everybody's Gotta Learn Sometimes, which, is used several times, including probably most notably at the end of the film, over the end credits. Now, the film was released March 9th, 2004, was a success both critically and commercially. It grossed $79 million, which with a budget of $20 million is a success, and it got rave reviews across the board for everyone, pretty much. Obviously Gondry and Curis got acclaim for their direction and their cinematography and the way that they work together. Kaufman's script, I personally think, kind of further raised his standing with critics, and it's considered one of his best scripts. It wasn't the only thing, but it was one of the things that kind of helped shape his standing as one of the most creative and best screenwriters of his time, kind of together with adaptation and being John Malkovich. Both Winslet and Carey got some of the best critical reviews of their careers. The character of Clementine, as a lot of people have noted, is a prominent example of the manic pixie dream girl cliche, and at the very same time is an example of breaking that cliche with her, various I'm not a concept speeches/lines. But half of people will say, oh, she's an example of one. The other half of people will say she's an example of the other, which I do think is interesting, how one character is kind of on both sides of the same thing.
Several years before the term was actually even coined, I can't remember which critic it was, but it was Elizabethtown, which came out in like 2006 or 7 or something, was when Manic Pixie Dream Girl was coined, that term. And Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry had already like perfected it and deconstructed it. Like they were ahead of the times.
I also did want to say that Winslet does consider this to be her best work, which I'm not going to say whether I do or not yet, but I do think that's interesting that she does consider this her best work. For Jim Carrey, reviewers noted, his against type performance, and many have called this his best work. And yet, interestingly enough, the film only received 2 nominations at the 77th Academy Awards. One for Best Actress for Kate Winslet and one for Best Original Screenplay for Kaufman. Pretty much Carey, Gondry, Curis, and everyone else, I feel, was snubbed. And Kaufman was the only one that won his award. Kaufman did win his one Academy Award for this film. I will say it did get nominated more at other award ceremonies like BAFTAs or Golden Globes, but even then, there were very few nominations, and even then, typically only Kaufman was the one winning out of the nominations for this film.
As of 2025, this is the most recent film to win a screenwriting Oscar and not Best Picture.
Wow, that's interesting. Grace, why don't you take us away with your connection with the film, what you thought of it.
Yeah, I have two quick anecdotes, one about Michel Gondry and one about Charlie Kaufman. The first about Michel Gondry is that my roommate, Mo, she met him while she was a production assistant on the set of an Apple commercial that he directed. This would have been back in 2021. And she did not know who he was. She was told to get coffee for Michel, thought that Michel was a woman, couldn't find him because he was not at like Video Village. And she was walking around. She was like, "Where's Michel? I can't find her." And everyone was like, "Shut the fuck up. Like, you are embarrassing yourself." Eventually she was able to like track him down, and she still didn't know like that he was the director. So she just thought he was like some guy. Like, she didn't know. Apparently he was really, really nice. And he struck up a conversation with her and was like, "Where are you from?" Like, and they were like chatting it up for like a good few minutes before like someone pulled Mo aside and was like, "That's the director. Like, you can't be talking to him like that." And she was like, "He started the conversation." So apparently, even though he is like a French auteur who likes torturing his actors a little bit, he was like a very nice, down to earth person. And she thinks she's like, he probably liked that I talked to him like I like normally. I wasn't like, "Oh my God," very reverent. And then the one Charlie Kaufman tidbit I have is last year, so it was the 20th anniversary of the movie. A really good friend of mine had tickets to go see. It was a screening with then a Q&A with Charlie Kaufman. And she was like, "Do you want to go with me?" And for whatever reason, I couldn't go. Like, I had something else going on and I was devastated. I was so jealous. I was like, "Oh my God, this is the only thing I want to see." And then afterwards, she texted me and she was like, "Grace, you did not miss anything. It was such a flop. Charlie Kaufman is a terrible interviewee. And the answer to every question, if he was asked about the script, he'd just be like, 'It was 20 years ago. I don't remember.' And if he was asked about filming, he'd be like, 'I don't know. I wasn't there.' And like rinse and repeat for like half an hour." She was like, literally no insights were gleaned. He didn't remember shit. He didn't want to talk about shit. He clearly didn't want to be there. He just wanted to go home. And that made me feel a lot better. So I wanted to say that, like, to give some background on like the personalities of these guys that made this movie. I will say, I've said for many years that this is my favorite movie of all time. Going into watching it again, same thing with Melodrama, where I was like, I had a fear for both of these where I was like, I've been hyping these up so much. And what if I watch them, like really like sit down and like lock in and watch them, even though I've watched / listened to them a million times. What if it actually doesn't hit as hard? Like, what if it's not as good? I didn't need to worry. This movie's still my favorite. Still slaps. 5 out of 5. Awesome. Amazing performances, amazing script, amazing cinematography, amazing editing, amazing directing. And I don't recall ever crying at the end of this movie when I watched it for the first time or any subsequent times, but I was weeping at the end this time. And I was watching with my roommate, Mo, and she was not paying attention. We get to the end of the movie and it's credits, and she was like, "Oh shit, what happened?" And I'm like wiping my eyes and sniffling, and she was like, "Oh damn, something sad, I guess." I was like, "Girl."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And she had seen the movie before, but she just like didn't remember it. I don't know. So, but it was really funny watching this too with Mo, and then another friend of ours was watching it with us as well. And both of them were like, "This is so Grace coded. Like, Grace, this is like such a you movie." And it is. And I think it was really, really formative for like my art in general, both like the themes and the style. It really just like, I watched it when I was like 16, 17, and like it changed my brain chemistry for sure. Yeah, I love a movie that's like bittersweet. I love surrealism. I just think this movie just like scratches every like little part of my brain in the best way. Happy to say it will still remain number 1 on my Letterboxd. And maybe it's a little basic. I know it's kind of a basic movie that a lot of people say it's their favorite movie, but what can I say? I have to speak my truth.
I mean, I love this film. The first time I saw it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, this film hits you like a ton of bricks. I absolutely adored it then. I did want to see if it would affect me as strong the first time or the second time as it did the first time. Interestingly enough, I feel like it didn't make me like as emotional the second time. It was still a fantastic movie. I love it. It's still like, it hit me very strongly, but it didn't make me emotional. And looking back, I wonder if it's because this time I'm in a stable relationship, while the first time I watched it, I was not. I genuinely wonder if that's why. Don't get me wrong, still a movie I absolutely love. It still like hits you, it still gets to you, but this time it just didn't make me as emotional, weirdly enough. But yeah, this is a movie I love. It's like in between a 4.5 and a 5. I think it's still a 5 for me, even if it didn't hit me as hard, because it's perfect. Like I wouldn't change anything about it. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to hear what questions you have for Brandon, Grace.
Yeah, I think most of my questions are just like, I want to know how you liked it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like the screenplay, on the structure of the film, and like its non-linear timeline and like the surrealist nature of it all. If you have any thoughts about the characters or the performances, and then I want to really get into like the ending and like your reading of the ending and all that jazz. And if you have any like favorite parts or how you like the score, because I think the score of this is great. Yeah, so so essentially just everything.
Okay, this is not the first Charlie Kaufman movie I have seen, surprisingly. I watched Synecdoche, New York.
You've seen Synecdoche, New York?
That is shocking.
I've seen a bunch of just random-ass movies.
How was Jurassic Park your first Spielberg film, and Eternal Sunshine was not your first Kaufman film? That's insane.
Yes.
You're crazy.
That's crazy.
Anyway.
I haven't seen Synecdoche, New York.
Whoa, add it to the list. I think that's 4 or 5 now that I've seen.
Yeah.
So the go-to number of movies that I say I've seen
Something
ever,
like
which is
that.
5. I have now seen 5 movies that you have not seen. Anyway, so this was not my first Kaufman movie. I did not realize this was Charlie Kaufman when I started watching it. I thought this was Sofia Coppola because I thought this was Lost in Translation for a second.
My second favorite movie, perhaps. So,
oh wow,
and they're very similar. They're very similar in tone.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay,
yeah.
so I guess I'm making some connections that make sense then. So I thought this was really good. I watched on HBO Max. Fuck HBO Max, by the way. They put ads in like every 15 minutes and they're super long and super loud. And they just completely ruin the flow of everything that's going on. I much prefer Hulu, who does ads only in like the first 2 acts and then lets you like watch the third act by itself. But I thought this was very interesting. And I thought that the first part of the movie, up until we get the credits, I was thinking the entire time, this is not something that Grace is going to like because it feels like it's just playing into the stereotype of a manic pixie dream girl. And it feels like Clementine has no depth and is just basically an idea of what like attractive bipolar woman is. I was confused about that. My sister had also seen this movie before last year because she's a big Ariana Grande fan, as I've talked about. And obviously, Ariana's last album was called Eternal Sunshine. So she watched this last year when it came out, and she was watching the first little part with me up until the credits. And afterwards, as the credits were playing, she was like, "Oh, that's very interesting. You'll see why." And then she also said, "What did you think? Did you think that's what the movie was?" And I said, "I have no idea what to think anymore." So they did a good job with that. And then I'd also like to say that I think I was missing some of the emotional part of this movie because of kind of the state of mind that I'm in right now, which is very interesting because I feel like I have the ability. Basically, next time I watch this, I think I'm going to have a more emotional reaction to it because this time I was kind of just trying to figure out how it works and like why it works, I guess, and why it's like affecting me in the way that it does. But I was very impressed. I thought Jim Carrey did a good job, although there were a few times where I was like, this is Jim Carrey, and it was weird because I was not used to him not being funny. And I don't think I've ever seen Kate Winslet in anything, so I have no opinion on her comparing like against her type or whatever. But I thought that she was very good as well.
I love her in this film, but for me, nothing beats her work in Mare of Easttown. That's like one of the best screen performances I've ever seen. So,
what else did I forget to mention that you wanted to know?
Well, I don't know. Like, did you like it? Do you
want me to say that right now and just say my score?
Well, you can say what you thought about it and not say your score too.
I don't think I can.
Okay, well, you can say your score and then extrapolate on it.
5 out of 5. This is really
Hell
good.
Yeah, let's go.
Hell yeah, that's right. We all agreed. We're all fives.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I remember you asking me, you were like, am I going to love this movie? And I was like, low-key, I think you will.
Yeah, this is really good. And I feel like even missing kind of as much of the emotional part as I still thought this was one of the best things that I've watched on here. I think it has the ability to get better upon rewatch. So, yeah, this is really good. I would like to watch it without ads, I would like to say. So, I will be renting from my local library next time. I thought the screenplay was very interesting, and I assume that he like made it normally and then kind of like messed it up and like put it out of order to try to get the most like emotional impact. But I don't really know. I can't speak to
Honestly, with Charlie Kaufman, I don't know.
how he writes.
Yeah, I don't know how he did that exactly. I will say the original screenplay is a little bit different because in the final version, we start kind of like in the future, like present day, then we go back. Joel, when he's making the appointment, when he's talking with like David Cross and his friends about that, that's all just kind of played like linearly straight. Whereas in the original script, it's very like Memento-esque, where it's like that's all in the memories. We get all that backwards. And I wonder if it was just decided that was too much for the audience, if like we needed to have a little bit more guideposts.
Considering how like difficult it is to understand fully what's going on with the dream sequences, it's like you want the rest of the film to be as straightforward as you can, so you can follow that the best way you can. Off your point that you don't know what else to say about the film, I do feel like this is one of the films where it's impossible to describe or to like let someone know how this film feels. Like, I feel like the best thing you could tell someone is to just go watch it, because that's the only really way to experience it.
I think that's why I had literally no idea what I was going into, is because I've never heard anyone describe it in a way other than, well, you just have to watch it to understand it, or it's about a relationship. Well, yeah, it is, but like it's also about like everything else. I was surprised about, I don't know if I want to use the word moral, but I guess that kind of is the word, is like how much of a lesson there is that like actually no, your bad memories are very important to who you are as a person, are like fundamental to understanding where you're going to go next in life. Like I thought that as like the takeaway of the movie, outside of like everything else, that was like one of the most inventive and interesting like takeaways I've had from a movie.
I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this film works perfectly with Melodrama, because I feel like the end of both the album and the film give you the same kind of hope, in the sense of, it's like, in the film it gives you the type of hope where, yeah, the characters will fight, they might break up again, their relationship might fail, but that doesn't matter because they're just living life. Like, it is what it is, and that's as important as, like, the good is as important as the bad, and I feel like that's something that does connect both the album and the film, kind of intrinsically. And I think that's why they both work so well and they both affect you so much.
That's a really great segue into the endings. I do want to talk about the ending of the movie. But before I talk more about like my opinions, Brandon, I want to know what you thought of the ending. Do you think that Joel and Clementine are meant to be, or are they doomed to repeat the same mistakes? Did you read it as kind of like, oh God, here we go again? Or did you read it as like more hopeful? What is your like analysis of the ending? Because I know this has been like a debate, like people have different readings of the ending.
So let me start off with my philosophy. I think you can be in love with multiple people over the course of your life. And I think that they are meant to be together in that stage of their life, but they're not meant to be together for the rest of their lives. And that, I think, is why it works so well for me, is because of the bittersweet thing. I've talked about how much I like bittersweet endings. It's also like they're going to repeat that no matter what. Like they're gonna fight again, and because they're still kind of like who they are, even if they lost their memory, they're gonna like kind of go through the same thing again, but they have to. And it's also kind of beautiful that they're able to experience that again.
Before I talk about my read of the ending as it is, I'll talk about the original ending, which Charlie Kaufman has said he prefers. Again, I think he's wrong, we start off with Mary as an old woman, and I think we're meant to kind of think it's Clementine, and then at the end we get kind of like a reversal where it turns out Mary is like elderly and she's still working at Lacuna. And then we have Clementine come in as an elderly woman coming into Lacuna, and she's like, I have an appointment. And Mary goes to Howard, who's also still working there, and she's like, Clementine's back. And Howard brings Clementine in, like, to do like the interview, like, okay, start telling me about your memories. And then we see in his file, Clementine has been back here 15 times to erase Joel. They keep breaking up, erasing each other, getting back together, breaking up, erasing each other, getting back together. And the very final scene is Clementine is in bed, the procedure's getting started, so she's getting hooked up to the machines. Joel calls and leaves a voicemail on her answering machine. That's so like we're in Clementine's house and we hear Joel and he's like, Clementine, like pick up, like I want to talk to you. And the technician hits erase and then cut to black. So and then I wrote that down because I was like writing like, oh, these are the differences. And then I just put a big frowny face. I understand the statement that's being made, but that is too sad. It's too sad. I'm also like a romantic at heart. So I'm kind of like, I don't love the like fatalism there. Michel Gondry was like, this is too bleak. We don't want to leave audiences on this like really like downer note of like, it's all doomed. It emphasizes the idea of like, we do need to keep our bad memories. Like that's how we learn and grow as people. But we can achieve that with a more open-ended, bittersweet ending than just like this like really horrible, sad thing. So Michel Gondry is the one who fought to change. And I'll say I have a really optimistic view of the ending. I don't know if necessarily Joel and Clementine are meant to be. I don't believe in people being meant to be, really. What I see that's very crucial about the ending is that we've just seen the scene where we're in the memories, they're in the Montauk house, and this is the first time they met, and we get the recounting of how Joel was like, I think I'm going to go, and Clementine says, so go, and he does. He leaves. And in the memory, Kate Winslet, Clementine is like, what if you stay this time? But, in my head, I do everything right. And so that's like, I wish I could go back. I wish I could undo this. I wish I could have. He says, I wish I'd stayed. I wish I'd done a lot of things. Now I wish I'd stayed. We have, we go back to the present timeline. We kind of see the fallout of their, both listening to the tapes. And Clementine is like, I should go. She leaves. And Joel goes after her. So he does something different than what he did in the past. In the past, he kind of was like, even though he was the one who was leaving, he was like, I'm letting it go. This time, he chases after her. He comes back and he says, wait. And she goes, what do you want? He goes, just wait. Like, he's just saying, just stay. Like, this time, stay. And that is like just so powerful to me. And it shows that there has been some growth, even though he doesn't remember necessarily. Like, he has undergone a change. And now they also both have the advantage too, because they talk very frankly with each other. They've already heard these tapes of them talking about like the worst things that they hated about each other when they were in a relationship. So they no longer have this kind of like rosy glow of like, oh my God, this person's going to fix me. This person's going to save me. They know that they already did that and it didn't work out that way. So they speak very frankly. Clementine says, I'm going to get bored of you and you're going to like get fed up with me. And you heard the tape. We're going to get annoyed at all these things. And Joel says, okay. Like the idea of like, yeah, I know that and I want to try anyway. And going into this relationship knowing this, maybe I can go into it now with a different perspective, with a more adult perspective maybe, that this relationship is not going to be perfect, but I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I love this person. I want to be with this person despite the imperfections. That was so I started crying when they're in the house and the house is falling apart and, Clementine says, what if you stayed this time? I was like, started dissolving. And then I kind of got it back. And then Joel runs after Clementine in the hallway. And that's when I was like, crying again. And then Mo is on her phone and she's like, what's going on? But then I gave her a brief summary of how it ended, and she, not really having paid attention, she had a very different take than me. She was like, oh my God, they're just going to do the same thing over again. What are they doing? Why would they do this? And so she read it completely differently. So I think that is something that is so strong about this movie and why it endures so much.
I kind of agree with her a little bit.
I gotta say, I actually agree with you, Grace. That is kind of the interpretation I always had of the ending, where it is this more hopeful ending. Even, like, yes, they will fight a lot. They might even break up several times, but I always felt that they will kind of endure in the end.
My final note that I had was, which is also, this is very similar to, yes, as we were saying, kind of tying it back to Melodrama, how, Lorde kind of admits, things aren't perfect. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to embrace the imperfections. I'm going to understand that things are imperfect. I wrote down that, they're able to admit the danger of heartbreak, and yet they say okay and choose to embrace the flaws and try again anyway. And that's love, baby. So I don't know, Brandon, if you had any... Wait, I do want to ask if you had any specifics. I just talked about a couple scenes that really made me get misty, to put it lightly. Do you have any scenes in particular, images that really stuck with you or that you felt really impacted by?
I liked them on the Charles. I thought that was very fun. I didn't realize it was in Boston at first, but I looked it up during one of the many commercial breaks, and I was like, oh, so they did go up to Boston. And that's where the Boston mug ties in, or I think it was the mug, right?
Yeah.
The other scenes that I really liked that I'd like to talk about because no one else did is the memory erasing moments. I thought were super well done and was not something I was expecting in the movie or expecting to like. And I liked watching him try to realize basically in real time that this is a mistake. I'm supposed to remember my life. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say other than I'm probably going to watch this again in a year and have a completely different message that I get from it. And then I'll watch it again in 2 years and have another different message.
Hell yeah.
This might be my number one on Letterboxd.
Oh my God, let's go. Big news, big news. I knew you would like this one.
Well, it's all thanks to you, Grace.
I was going to say, this is so exciting that I was able to introduce David to an album that David really, really enjoyed, and then to introduce Brandon to a film that they really enjoyed.
It's almost like that's the whole point of the podcast.
I do feel like this was a very special episode because I feel like we both came away with something new that we both really love, and that is thanks to you, being our guest on this episode.
And thanks to you having good taste. So.
Yes,
stop.
That too.
No, thank you guys so much for having me and letting me have this opportunity to... I waited my whole life for someone to be like, Grace, do you want to yap for 3 hours about some of your favorite music and your favorite movies? And you guys came to me and it was just perfect. This has been the best way to spend my evening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to have been your first guest and to share these pieces of work that are very influential to me and my artistic process and to my life, just period in general. And were very formative for me. It was really special to get to share that with you guys and also have you guys love them just as much as I have, or almost as much as I have maybe. But that's been really great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to plug yourself one more time in case people are listening to this in multiple parts because it's so long?
Yeah. Hopefully we're able to pare it down a little bit. Hopefully we can save it in the edit, as they would say.
I would like to say real quick, I'm in the Central Time Zone. It is now a different day since when we started recording.
Oh, man.
LOL, LMAO even. Yeah, but my Instagram is at Graceless_Tallmadge. Graceless as in just another graceless night. And then in words of Lorde.
We'll link you in the description as well.
You know what? I forgot I have a Rate Your Music account and I forgot what it is.
I think it's Gracie T.
So you have to put it in
I believe.
I think it probably is the same as Letterboxd because my Letterboxd is at Gracie T, just Gracie and then T. So it looks like Graciette or Gracier,
it does look like
maybe.
Graciette, yeah.
And yeah, you can see my really wonderful, insightful one-sentence review of Eddington. Also my review of Clifford, where I advocate for child abuse. And, all the other wonderful insights.
Exactly.
And And where can you find us, Brandon?
Make sure you follow us on Letterboxd and Rate Your Music. All that's in the description. Follow us on Instagram, and you'll get updates about the next episode that's coming out. And hopefully soon we'll be having, or maybe we've already started doing some short form videos that you can find on Instagram and maybe TikTok and maybe even YouTube Shorts if we feel like it. But no commitment yet.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy. Getting crazy with
We'll
it.
see.
David, do we want the people to email us?
They do at upcpod@gmail.com. I've got it down so well now. Email us to tell us how amazing Grace's taste is.
Or you can leave a comment on Spotify like I did. I left my first ever hate comment on your last episode.
That's true.
I woke up to that yesterday, I believe.
For the viewers at home, that was the episode about After Sun just dropped. And I was like, Brandon, your hot take is so hot because no one else has that same take because it's incorrect. Because it's wrong.
The people have spoken.
But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.